David, delighted you're here.
Yeah, delighted to be here.
And delighted to talk to you about There Will Be No Silence.
There will be no silence.
There will be no silence.
Yeah.
So the emphasis on the will.
That's the way I say it, yeah.
And the title comes from?
The title came from a sort of series of discussions, I think during the pandemic, when we were all outdoors, and myself and Adam Wyeth, the poet, whom I worked with on this very closely, we got our coffees, we walked around endless parks, and talked about this project that, we had been working on some other theatre projects, and we were keen to, we knew we had the germ of something, and so we teased it out as we walked around, and the title kind of came from general discussions about what we wanted to do, from a words point of view, a poetic point of view, sort of what he felt he might want to say, because I wanted the words to influence what I wrote, and I wanted what I wrote to influence what he was going to do, so we wrote in tandem, and like a game of tennis or something.
So you actually passed it backwards and forwards. He would write some words, you'd write some music, back it went.
Yes.
Is it narrative? I mean, you have two very famous actors on stage with you, or with the musicians.
Yes.
Is it a narrative piece, or is it a bit more fragmented?
It's not a narrative piece, no. I think it's a sort of a journey of sorts. The music and we call them dramatic monologues. So it is poetry. They interact, but not entirely. They overlap, and they hint at each other. But when we have music, we really have music, and when we have poetry, we have poetry. So there is a certain clear delineation.
So they actually come in discrete sections?
They do.
So you don't have that awful thing of trying to time actors with musicians and say, you've got to finish by now because they're about to play stuff?
No, as the piece progresses, the initial monologues are typically without any sound at all, and then there are hints of extemporization from the musicians as we go, and the final piece of poetry called Pinter's Pause. So the clues in the title there, pause, silence. The musicians get more involved, and it sort of squeezes the piece, it pushes it hurtles it maybe into the final movement.
Yeah, because I got some comments saying it's pretty wild. I mean, like...
it does get a bit wild, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the wildness, actually.
Yeah.
So actually it builds toward, it's not wild from the start, it's wild at the very end.
Well, part of the notion of the silence kind of idea, and there will be no silence, you can look at it in very simple terms: sound versus silence, loud versus soft, musician versus actor, these kind of basic contrasts that we have. Piano and cello are the two instruments, so piano versus cello. So we have these relationships. The two musicians, the two actors, Owen Rowan, Aisling O'Sullivan, are fantastic. And then we have the relationship of the two groups, the actors, the monologues, and the music, and all of that interaction. So it sort of hints at a relationship, I suppose, of sorts.
Right.
And if there is a narrative to the piece, it is the story of a relationship, elements of a relationship, not necessarily romantic, but I think that's in there.
Right.
I suppose in a long relationship, it's almost the words unspoken, those moments of silence that can be much more powerful than the words themselves.
Yes.
The longings, that's all in silence. The desires, the regrets, that lives in this sort of shadow world of silence. So,
you know that, I'm amused by the name, in fact it's called Pinter's Pause. You know that famous Pinter quote? The one where he shouts from the stalls when he's doing a rehearsal. You know how he always has, the dots.
That's right.
And the famous quote, I mean, it's probably an urban legend, but apparently one time he showed it, that pause has 3 dots, not 2.
That's right, I think, and one of his pieces, I think, had 247 pauses built in. So I love that that's the final piece, and it's a really beautiful piece of Adam's, as they all are. And, it's worth just saying something about the text, I suppose. Yeah, Adam was a percussionist. He played tabla, played djembe. So he's really driven by music, loves music. And he writes, not just the rhythm of music is there behind him, but I know that he loves that, music can be abstract, art can be abstract, and get away with it easily. There's space for it to happen, But harder with words.
Yes.
Some famous notable exceptions. So he likes to leave space within his writing for the listener to kind of get in with their own imagination. So there's space there, I hope there is in the music as well, for the listener to join us on this kind of arc, shall we say, over the 30 or 40 minutes. But there's space to get in and use your own imagination. It's not sort of too prescriptive.
Nice. I mean, have you worked with Adam before?
Yes.
And on similar projects or other projects?
We worked on a theatre project which is ongoing, actually. So it was more a music and lyrics kind of relationship. Right. But it developed very quickly.
But have you ever written opera before?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Because what you're describing sounds like the ideal relationship between a librettist and a composer, actually. That's part of the trouble with opera librettos is that, libretti, I suppose, going to be accurate, is that they try to give you too much information. Like, it's a really bad medium for telling you actual facts, opera. Of course, like, oh, I missed that. What time was the train?
Yeah.
You know, doesn't really work. I say it's 3:15, about 15 times to work.
Yeah.
But a great librettist allows the music to do exactly what you're talking about. I mean, it sounds like you sort of found almost a kind of operatic formula, but with spoken word, which is apparently that's not an opera nowadays, but or never was.
I mean, I didn't think of it like that. It's interesting that you should say that. It's certainly, I think, just artistically, when you find somebody that you know instantly that you enjoy working with them, and when that relationship then develops, obviously, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can tell why kind of composer librettist pairings last. You know, I mean, Gilbert and Sullivan, stormy, but lasted.
They did.
But also, many other notable examples of exactly that. Because when you have that kind of shorthanded understanding, which sounds like what you're talking about. Yeah, it's interesting. It certainly has been quite a ride on this piece, and we have other projects in the works. So. Oh, fantastic! And how is it working with Adrian and Rolf?
Adrian and Rolf. I mean, it's another wild ride, and you said something about that the end of the piece gets a bit wild. Well, we had the two right people for that. Anybody that knows Adrian Mantu or Rolf Hind will know they're strong and interesting characters, incredible musicians, the greatest generosity of spirit that you will ever find in musicians, and enthusiasm for the work, and a work ethic indeed for both of them. I'd worked with Adrian on a theatre piece for television actually that we had done, and just had a great time working with him. And we planned on we put a pin in. We must work on something again. So this just came up. He was my first call, and then somebody said to me, "Well, the pianist you need for this is Rolf Hind," and I said, "Well, the pianist that we all want for everything is Rolf Hind. One of the top contemporary pianists in the world." Yes. And so I sent him a score, expecting no reply or a very polite "no, thank you." And I heard back very quickly. He said, "I'm in."
No, I imagine he's absolutely thrilled.
I'm in.
I think I know Rolf reasonably, and actually I'm sure he would have said, "Absolutely, I'm on for this."
Yeah.
No reason not to, really, I suspect.
Yeah. Well.
But it's a great thrill to have at the festival, and actually you're the opening gig.
Yes, very exciting.
So Thursday lunchtime.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a better way to open the festival. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
so.
really look forward to it.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
It's great for you to come in. Thank you.